There are moments in life when God allows the veil between heaven and earth to thin just enough for you to catch a glimpse of what he's doing behind the scene. And when angels show up with a word, when they whisper to your spirit, when they stir something in your soul, it's not random, it's not coincidence, it's confirmation. Confirmation that what you've been sensing, what you've been praying for, what you've been wrestling with has not gone unheard in the throne room of heaven. See, confirmation is God's way of saying, I'm already at work, even if you don't see the evidence yet. Angels don't waste their time carrying casual conversation. They are divine messengers. They come when heaven wants to validate what you've been doubting. They show up when your faith is shaking, when your patience is wearing thin, when your mind is telling you it's impossible. And in that moment, heaven leans down and says, hold on, don't give up yet. I'm doing something in the shadows. Some of you have been asking for a sign. You've been on your knees saying, God, show me if this is real. Show me if this love is true. Show me if this connection is meant to be. And while you're waiting, the other person is hesitating. They want to speak, but they're held back. They want to step forward, but something has them paused. And that's when God sends a confirmation, not to make you chase after them, not to make you lose yourself in worry, but to remind you that he has his hand on the whole situation. Don't miss this. Hesitation doesn't cancel love. Sometimes hesitation is the evidence of love, because when love is real, it weighs heavy. It's not careless. It's not shallow. It makes a person stop and think, if I step forward, I need to be ready. If I open my mouth, I need to mean every word. If I move, it must be in the timing of God. That's not rejection. That's reverence. That's somebody wrestling with the weight of something holy. And this is why heavenly confirmation matters, because God knows our tendency to run ahead of his timing. He knows how quick we are to grab hold of something before it's ready, to force a door open before he's given us the key. So he sends a whisper from heaven, a nudge in your spirit, a sense in your heart that says, be still, don't panic. I've got this. That the whisper is not the final answer. It's the reminder that the answer is on the way. I want you to hear me. God is never late, but he is never rushed. His confirmation doesn't come to satisfy your impatience. It comes to stabilize your faith. Because if you don't learn to trust his timing, you'll sabotage his blessing. Some of you are standing in the hallway of hesitation, and you're ready to kick the door down. But the angels are saying, wait on the Lord. Because when that door swings open, no man will be able to shut it. Heavenly confirmation is not just about romance. It's about reassurance. It's about God saying, I see you, I hear you, I've already assigned what belongs to you. And when that person finally speaks, when love finally breaks through hesitation, you won't have to question if it's real, because heaven already confirmed it before they ever confessed it. So stop chasing shadows and start trusting signs. Stop demanding answers and start resting in assurance. If God has allowed angels to speak, then you can trust that his hand is guiding the story. You don't have to manipulate. You don't have to beg. You don't have to fear. All you need to do is stand in faith and say, Lord, I trust your confirmation more than I trust my confusion. Because when heaven speaks, hesitation can't hold out forever. Fear can't win forever. Delay can't last forever. At the appointed time, God will break the silence. And when he does, you won't just hear words of love, you'll hear the echo of his confirmation all over it. So take heart. If angels are speaking, it means heaven is already moving. And if heaven is moving, nothing on earth can stop what God has set in motion. Fear and faith cannot sit in the same seat. One will always evict the other. Fear is loud, intimidating, and relentless. It whispers worst-case scenarios into your ear. It magnifies the what-ifs. It convinces you to believe in failure before you even take a step. Faith, on the other hand, is quieter, but it is stronger. Faith says, God is able. Faith says, if he promised it, he will perform it. Faith says, no weapon formed against me shall prosper. But fear will do everything it can to drown that voice. There are some of you right now who are caught in the tension of fear and faith. You feel the pull to move forward, but fear keeps tugging you back. You sense that someone cares for you, someone wants to come closer, someone has love in their heart, but they're hesitating because fear is trying to chain them down. Fear of rejection, fear of loss, fear of being vulnerable, fear of stepping into something that might cost them everything if it goes wrong. Fear has a way of making you rehearse failure before success ever has a chance to breathe. But let me tell you, fear is a liar. Fear paints pictures on walls that don't exist. Fear builds prisons with doors that were never locked. It convinces a man or woman to stay silent when they ought to speak, to run when they ought to stand, to quit when they ought to fight. Fear will paralyze destiny if you let it. But faith, it only takes a mustard seed of faith to move mountains that fear said would never budge. Faith is not denying the reality of the situation. Faith is looking at the situation and saying, you are real, but my God is greater. Faith acknowledges the mountain, but refuses to bow to it. Faith sees the Red Sea in front, Pharaoh's army behind, and still says, stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. Fear wants you to collapse under the weight of what you don't know. Faith reminds you that God already knows, and that's enough. Now let me bring this home. Somebody loves you, but fear is holding their tongue. Fear has them hesitating. They want to reach out. They want to confess. They want to step forward, but they're fighting an internal war. And while they wrestle, God is whispering, don't let fear have the final word. Fear may delay, but faith will decide. When faith rises, fear has to back down. You've got to remember, God never calls us to live by sight. Sight says, I need proof before I step. Faith says, step and the proof will follow. Sight says, I'll move when I understand it. Faith says, move and understanding will come later. Fear is married to sight, but faith is tied to trust. Trust that God is orchestrating even the hesitation. Trust that he is using the silence to grow something deeper. Trust that when the moment comes, faith will break through the chains of fear and words will finally be spoken. Fear can't hold back what heaven has already stamped. Fear can only delay the inevitable work of God. Think about it. Peter was afraid of the storm, but Jesus was walking on the water. The storm didn't stop the Savior. It only exposed Peter's lack of faith. Fear magnifies the storm, but faith magnifies the Savior. So the real question is, where is your focus? Because what you magnify, you empower. If you magnify fear, fear will rule. If you magnify faith, faith will lead. And here's the good news. Faith doesn't need to be big. It just needs to be present. You don't need mountain-sized faith. You need mustard seed faith. Just enough to say, Lord, I trust you more than I trust my fear. That little seed can silence the loudest lies of the enemy. That little seed can push back the hesitation, break the chains, and release the courage to speak. So don't despise the wrestle between fear and faith. Sometimes the battle is proof that breakthrough is near. Sometimes the hesitation is the very sign that something weighty, something divine is about to be released. Fear is shaking because it knows faith is rising. When faith rises, fear falls. So if you are the one waiting, hold on. If you are the one hesitating, step out. Fear will always scream, but faith will always win. Because fear looks at circumstances, but faith looks at God. And when God is in the equation, fear never gets the final word. Timing is everything. You can have the right person at the wrong time, and it will feel like the wrong person. You can have the right opportunity at the wrong season, and it will look like failure. You can have love in your heart, but if the timing is off, confusion will cloud what should have been clear. That's why in relationships, divine timing is not just important, it's essential. Because when God writes a love story, he doesn't just bring two hearts together. He aligns those hearts in the rhythm of his purpose. You see, God does not operate on our clocks. We're busy looking at minutes and hours, days and years. But God is looking at eternity. What feels delayed to us is often preparation to him. That's why you can pray for something today and not see the answer until years later. Because God is not just answering your request. He's arranging the context around it. He's shaping you, shaping them, shaping circumstances until everything lines up with his divine calendar. So when it comes to relationships, you gotta understand waiting is not wasted. Waiting is working. Waiting is God's way of sanding down edges, building up patience, healing wounds, and preparing hearts so that when the moment finally comes, it won't collapse under the weight of unpreparedness. Some of you are frustrated right now because you feel ready, but the other person is hesitating. You're saying, Lord, why won't they speak? Why won't they step up? Why won't they move forward? And heaven is answering, because I'm not done with them yet. I'm still working. Don't confuse silence with absence. Don't confuse delay with denial. What looks like hesitation to you may actually be God's hand of protection. Because sometimes he withholds words until he knows both of you are ready to handle them. Sometimes he allows a pause so that the foundation can be laid deeper. If he rushed the process, you might ruin what he meant to bless. That's why divine timing is crucial. Because when it's God's time, everything falls into place without force. Think about it. Sarah and Abraham wanted a child, but they got impatient and tried to force the promise on their own timetable. The result was Ishmael, something birthed out of human impatience rather than divine timing. And for generations, that decision brought strife. But when God's time came, Isaac was born, the child of promise, the fulfillment of what heaven had ordained. The difference wasn't in the desire, it was in the timing. Some of you need to hear this. Don't birth an Ishmael in your relationships because you couldn't wait on Isaac. Don't settle for the counterfeit because you were tired of waiting for the real. If the one God has for you is hesitating, then let them wrestle, let them wait, let them grow. Because when God says it's time, their hesitation will break, their courage will rise, and the love you've been praying for will stand bold in the open. Divine timing doesn't just bring two people together, it brings them together in alignment. And when there's alignment, there's peace. You don't have to force conversation. You don't have to beg for attention. You don't have to manipulate circumstances. It flows because heaven has orchestrated it. That's how you know it's God, because the timing carries his fingerprints. But here's the challenge. Can you trust him enough to wait? Can you sit in the uncertainty without rushing ahead? Can you believe that the same God who set the stars in the sky and keeps the oceans in their boundaries knows how to align two hearts in the right season? That's the test of faith, because it's easy to say, I trust you, Lord, when the answer is immediate. It's harder to say it when the answer lingers. Yet that's where maturity grows. When you trust him, not just for the promise, but for the timing of the promise. So here's the truth. Divine timing may not always match your preference, but it will always fulfill his purpose. You may feel like you're late, but heaven says you're right on schedule. You may feel overlooked, but heaven says you're being prepared. You may see hesitation, but heaven sees alignment.
When it's God's time, no devil in hell, no fear in the heart, no hesitation in the mind can stop it. When it's his time, the door opens, the words flow, the love becomes clear, and peace fills the room. And when you look back, you'll thank him for every moment you had to wait, because you'll realize that the wait was not punishment, it was preparation.
So trust the timing. Don't force it. Don't fear it. Don't fight it. If it's divine, it will align. And when it aligns, it will last. Because what God joins together in his time, no man can put asunder. There are seasons in life when you can't figure it out with logic. The circumstances don't make sense. The timing feels off. The silence is heavy. And you find yourself wondering, Lord, what am I supposed to do now? That's when you've got to learn how to trust in God's signs. Because God has a way of speaking, not always through a voice you hear, but through moments you encounter, through doors that close and others that open, through people who walk away and people who walk in, through whispers in your spirit that you can't explain but you know are real. The problem is, too many of us are looking for billboards in the sky when God is sending breadcrumbs at our feet. We want him to shout, but he often chooses to whisper. We want him to lay it all out, but he gives just enough light for the next step. Why? Because signs are not meant to replace faith, they're meant to strengthen it. A sign is not God saying, you don't need to trust me. A sign is God saying, trust me more because I've just given you a glimpse of my hand. And when it comes to love, relationships, and matters of the heart, his signs matter because sometimes somebody loves you but hesitates to say it. They wrestle in silence. They question themselves. They wonder if it's the right time, the right moment, the right way. While they hesitate, God sends signs to you, not so you'll chase them, but so you'll stay anchored. He'll send peace in the middle of confusion. He'll give you discernment when you can't read the situation. He'll remind you through circumstances that what you've been praying about hasn't been ignored. See, trusting in God's signs means you stop leaning on your emotions. Emotions are fragile. They rise one day and fall the next. They make you doubt today what you were certain of yesterday. But God's signs don't waver. They carry consistency. They point you back to his word. They carry a weight of peace even when nothing else makes sense. That's why when God confirms something through a sign, you can hold on to it even when the silence lingers. But here's where we miss it. We want to interpret the signs on our own. We twist them to match what we want. We see what we desire instead of what he's actually saying. That's why discernment is so important. You can't just look at a coincidence and call it God. You've got to weigh it against his character, his word, his peace. Because the enemy knows how to dress up a distraction and make it look like a sign. But when it's truly from God, it won't just excite you. It will anchor you. It won't just stir your emotions. It will stabilize your soul. Trusting in God's signs also means accepting his no as much as his yes. Because sometimes the sign isn't confirmation to move forward. It's caution to stop. Sometimes the red flag is the sign. Sometimes the closed door is the sign. Sometimes the silence is the sign. And if you trust him, you won't just celebrate when he says yes. You'll thank him when he says no, because you'll know he's protecting you from what you can't yet see. Remember this, God gave Gideon signs to reassure him. He was chosen. He gave Moses signs to prove his power. He gave the wise men a star to guide them to Jesus. Signs are God's way of saying, I'm still in control. They are reminders that heaven has not forgotten you. But here's the key. You can't just chase the sign. You've got to trust the one who sends it. Because the truth is, a sign without trust will still leave you empty. You'll doubt it, question it, and argue with it. But when your trust is in him, even the smallest sign feels like a mighty confirmation. Even a whisper can silence your fears. Even a delay can reassure you because you know his hand is still moving. So if God has been sending signs in your life, trust them. Don't ignore them. Don't twist them. Don't rush ahead of them. Sit with them. Pray over them. Let them build your faith. And remember, his signs are not given to tease you. They're given to teach you patience, to teach you trust, to teach you dependence. At the end of the day, trusting in God's signs is really about trusting in God himself. It's saying, Lord, I may not have all the answers, but I trust your signals. I trust your whispers. I trust your way. And when you live like that, you'll discover that his signs will never lead you astray. because the God who sends them is the God who holds your future. So don't panic in the silence. Don't fear the delay. Don't second guess the whispers. If he gave you a sign, stand on it, because heaven does not play with your heart. What he confirms, he will complete.